Our first speaker this afternoon is Gerry White. He is the Dean of Academic Technology at ECPI University. This session is all about building stronger critical thinking skills when working with AI. Gerry will introduce an interactive simulator that helps users evaluate and improve AI outputs. It's a hands-on approach to becoming a more thoughtful AI user. Gerry, over to you.
Thank you, Callista. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you've had a good day so far. I'm enjoying the presentations. As Callista said, today I'm going to talk to you about a way to kind of mitigate some of the double-edged sword that we all know that we see in the classrooms with AI. This one is particularly dealing with outputs. A little bit at the end, we'll look at something that has to do with prompting in the inputs, another tool. And when I get done with the end of the whole presentation, my contact information will be in there. And the tools that I have, I also have prompts that I can give you. So if you don't have the actual tool, you could use this in your classroom with your students, or just use it yourself to try to build a bulwark against just believing anything that these outputs give us. So I built this art simulator, which is not just a tool or a prompt that you students throw in to get something. It's actually a way for them to learn how to evaluate different outputs when they come out of these language models. If you go to the next slide, Callista. And what it actually stands for is AI Resistance Simulator. It's not resistance to AI. I think we all know that that boat has sailed. Our students are using it. They're using it, young students in grammar school all the way up to, in higher education where we are. So this is a resistance simulator to overconfidence in those AI outputs. We know we've all used them, and we'll go through some of the different ways that they can kind of lead us astray. And as we know as well, when people just blindly believe the outputs, it dulls those critical thinking skills. We saw this some with Google for years, but now AI, which is faster and it seems like more confident, people just put something in and they just kind of believe it. So this, other than just fact checking things for them, it helps them build those skills to actually check it themselves and know what type of checking they're doing, whether it has to do with fallacious reasoning or hallucinations or anything like that. If you could go ahead and go to the next slide, Callista. Now, how this works, and I'll get through this presentation and then we'll look at it, is it engages the student or the user with an output. It could be based on a question they asked about evidence in a paper. It could be a brainstorming question about what the different research shows on this. And then once they see it, they analyze it. And it shows them, it kind of walks them through, they analyze this in different ways to evaluate whether the information is real, fallacious, or just plain wrong. And then once they analyze it, they decide whether they're going to check it, where they're going to check it. Not much different from the way that we've checked sources in the past, but just the fact of doing it. And then at the very end, it asks them to reflect on what they did so that they can consistently get better. Next slide, please. Now, why does this matter? We all know this. You've probably been hearing about this all morning. This is everywhere. It's bleeding into not just the tools we have in school, but into every app people use online on their phones. So it's growing so fast, and it's becoming such a part of everything that we do. We know the different threats, misinformation, disinformation. We've heard a lot about that, and that is growing kind of exponentially. So we really need to start now, building these defenses against that type of thinking that'll allow that to happen. And, I know we hear critical thinking all the time, and we've seen all of the different apps people have for, solving puzzles and different things. This actually looks at the text, the language itself, and it asks the student how to to analyze it, helps them do that. And then once they do, they reflect it and can take that to the next step. Next slide, please. Now, this kind of is what I just talked about, but it's kind of a loop. They read the generated response. They detect the type of weakness it is. It has, I've got 10 different ones that we'll look at in here, which would be type of weaknesses that they could have. And then it gives them the results, whether it's correct, wrong, but it shows them the flaws in their logic for evaluating it. And then again, they reflect on it and it can build on those skills. Next slide, please. Now, the way this is built, I built this for my students. I saw these in the classrooms. I teach writing, so it's a lot of research, a lot of checking of sources in general. But these were the first 10 that I saw the biggest need for. So these are the 10 on here. We're going to look at 4 specific ones a little bit later, but there are 10. And at the end, when you get my contact information, if you can think of any more, if you'd like help build in any of these or any more, please let me know and we can always add these to this. And they're the ones that we would expect, right? Fact checking, just basic fact checking, whether a source is credible or not. Some of the same types of credibility that we've asked for in the past, can you verify this on another site? Is this a site that's credible in and of itself? Is it an academic journal? Is it a government site? What news site is it? Can you verify it across multiple sources instead of one? So we're still looking at those things to identify that, plain old fake information. I know y'all are all on social media. Some of the things we get in our feed that you just know are crazy and not true, they're there, and many people are just believing what they see there, and that is carrying over to AI. When people pop in a question like it's a search engine, they automatically believe what's coming out. So some of the strengths that we try to build, like what are our assumptions, what are our biases, they're kind of not getting better, they're kind of going backwards a little bit. So hopefully this is a way to not only keep them where they're at, but push them a little bit further. We hear a lot about the negative impacts of AI, but used correctly, it can really bolster those skills. And, not just across the AI, but across those social networks and the internet in general. All right, next slide, please. So the four modes we'll kind of quickly look at today are one, just again, fact checking. Is this the right date? Is this person's name spelled correctly? Just basic claims that you would see in the facts. But then there are the basic flaws in logic, fallacies, hallucination detection, which we'll look at. And then again, to me, what's important is people being able to check their biases and assumptions at the door when looking at these. All right, if you could go to the next slide, please. All right, so fact checking. This kind of crazy example here, but it's talking about Mount Everest, and it's got a very round number on that, 31,000 feet. That might be a reason to check it a little bit. And it'll ask them, what's wrong with this? And we'll see it in a minute. They'll give them an input to put what they think is wrong in it, what the reasoning behind that is, and then it will show them what's correct or incorrect about that. All right, next, please. Now this, we all know about fallacies, right? Hasty generalization, straw man. What are not just the flaws in whether it's hallucinating, whether the facts are wrong, but what is the logic? Does this make sense? Just A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. And as we know, many of the things we see don't. This is a generalization here. If we ban video games, of course, all crime is going to decrease. That's not true. And then over here, it asks about the evidence when it gives them the correct one. All right, next, please. Okay, hallucination detection. Now, I remember the first one I saw this when, ChatGPT first hit big and we were all using it in our classrooms. Somebody in a presentation had they asked, what's the world record for crossing the English Channel on foot? And it gave an actual record, the person's name and everything. And as we know, you can't cross the English Channel on foot, maybe go in the tunnel, but not that. So, the hallucinations were obvious. However, as these systems get better, the hallucinations might not be as obvious, but be just as detrimental to believing that they're also kind of absolutely accurate. So to be able to spot them, in multiple passes or one pass, depending on what they're looking at, very important. So that's one that we added in here as well. Next, please. All right. And then again, bias detection. Climate activists frequently engage in illegal protest and violence to silence those who disagree with them. Whoa, right? That's kind of a correct way, as we can see. While some climate activists use disruptive tactics, many engage in peaceful again, this outlandish claim with no evidence and no proof. Here, what is my bias? I always, say to students, and one of these is in there as well. If you get really emotional about something you see online, even on TV, but definitely in an output or on a social channel, it's meant to give you that emotional that outpouring, and that means that you really need to look closely at it, because it's really leaning in that pathos side of in the ethos logos pathos triangle to try to pull you by using your biases. All right, next slide, please. Now we're almost done with this, and we can get into the tool. What are the benefits of this? Well, people need to learn how to use AI. It's kind of been thrown at the world, and with no training, no anything, just like it was thrown at us when it first came out, right? But everybody is feeling this wave now. Even people who kind of ignored it aren't ignoring it anymore. And in education, we definitely can't ignore it. We need to help create responsible users, better AI users of multiple types of AI, but definitely these language models, especially as they start to shift, which they're doing, really in the last couple of weeks, the way they work. We want people to get better at it and to be able to use it, because we know not only are they going to be using it in school, when they get out of school, there's probably not a discipline or a job that they'll get where they won't have to use it. And even at home, people are using it for everything, maybe not all the greatest things, but they are definitely using it. And then another benefit, again, that's the buzzword, critical thinking, but it is so important. As much of this technology we've seen over the past years has, what many of us would think, dulled these skills, made things easier, maybe a little too easy, given us answers too quick. One thing hopefully that this will help do is when you have a question, if your immediate instinct is to go outside of yourself to look for an answer, that's not a good thinking. That's not a good habit, and it doesn't lead to good critical thinking. That means that every time you do that, you're dulling that sense, that critical thinking, more and more. So what we need to do is, okay, what do I think it is? And then you can query the model, and that is part of this whole process as well. And this, of course, this translates to everything that they're doing, to get into schools, to, in interviews. One of the things on here is an interview simulator that kind of helps with this. So it's very, very important and critical skill that we need to, at every level of the game, from K-12 all the way up through higher education, really start using to help people use this technology. All right, last slide, please. All right, and the demo that I'm getting ready to look at, that's the URL to the one that I have up that you can go to and you can use. It's just open. You can use it. You can get your students to use it. That is my email address. If you want prompts that I've built that kind of do the same thing that it's going to do in this tool, but you can drop it in different LLMs, whether it's like a Claude, ChatGPT, or a Gemini, and it will give you some of the same responses. You can either give this to students, or you can, use it yourself on the board when you're teaching, or just for yourself. This was kind of built to, if I know a student is having trouble with a hasty generalization or a bias, I could send them to this for practice. But it's also meant to, if you have 5 minutes, if you have 10 minutes, instead of doom scrolling, go in here. It's like going to the gym. You have 10 minutes. Okay, I'm just going to do, 10 reps, 3 sets real quick. You get it in wherever you can. And this is building those thinking muscles, just like we would build those normal muscles. That's something I kind of like to always promote in the class as well. Well, all right, let's go ahead and look at how I have built this tool. So this is the art simulator, and the way that it kind of works is, here are all those 10 domains or 10 different areas that we talked about. We have the fact checking one, the logical errors, hallucinations, and source verification. You can see there are many others here: tone analysis, contradiction finder, bias detection, statistical error, citation. There's a lot of different ones here, and we're adding those. Now, once a student gets to one of these, we'll see right here, kind of what it does. They can pick beginner, intermediate, or expert. Now, what's cool about this is I can direct a student to this, but what's been more interesting is when they think they're an expert and they go there and they're not quite getting it, they'll go down to kind of work their way up to it. The beginner one can give them hints at times, and it gets a little bit harder as they go. So here, historical date verification, you can see here it gives us a date. If we get ready to analyze it here, it's like it asks them, okay, so what is wrong with this sentence? I'm going to do something real quick here. So I'll just put the date, the flaw type, let's say misleading statistics. I'll use constant. I'll just put wrong date here. Look up date, see what it says. Okay, I got it completely wrong. All right. The actual flaw, and it gives that to them. It tells them how, and they can keep continuing on this same path or the same track as they go. Same thing with the logical errors. It'll ask them, what's the flaw type? And again, with their confidence. If we go to the hallucination detection, again, the same type of system. And they work through this in they can, you could tell them spend 10 minutes, work up to expert. And this really just, it gets them to challenge those outputs for any of these domains that are here on the left. And these are just 10 of the problems we know exist with the outputs of these models, whether they're live models or whether they're just going purely on training data. We see this in the mix there. All right. If we could go, let me get out of here and go to another one real quick here. This is an input check here. There we go. So same kind of system, but this helps them to create better inputs, to ask better questions. So, this will help them build a prompt. It'll analyze a prompt that they have. They can compare prompts. This is a really nice one. It kind of just shows them what are some of the, attributes of the different models. What are some of their different strengths and weaknesses? And it can kind of break them down and show them, how they work out and which one might be better for what they're doing. It also can help them select which one they might want to do a paid one for if they're going to do a paid one. And then real quickly, let me go to one last one here. Sorry for this switching back and forth, but all right, so here's just a place where tools like this for many of the different issues we see with critical thinking are built in here. And as you can see, it's the same type of system. This is one where they put in an assignment sheet, and it will break down the assignment sheet for them. Give them like steps they could take to do it, timetables. It puts it in plain English, kind of what AI would do for them if they already knew maybe how to use a model. This helps them so that they can use the model when they're, kind of offline and just using the model for themselves. And as you can see, several of these, there's one that goes through the writing process, one that helps them, solve problems. These are the two the students really like. This is a debate engine where they challenges their points of view. And then that's the interview simulator that I was talking about. So again, these started off as prompts. You can use those prompts in systems, whether it's like Base 44, Replit, Claude Code, maybe a lot of these systems that allow you to build agents from basic, natural language. And then you can use them to build your own tools. They're very easy to set up. My contact info is in there. I do workshops often helping teachers to take the problems they're seeing in their classroom, build something that will help and implement it, rapidly in the classroom with their students. So I hope this helps a little. Again, I have those prompts for you, and I will open it up for questions if anybody has any.
Yes, I'll be watching the chat if anybody wants to type any questions in there. In the meantime, I'm really curious to know what kind of feedback have you been getting from students and faculty who might be using this tool?
Students like it. They like some of them better than others, the ones that make them stretch a little bit and think,
Yeah.
but they love a lot of them. The faculty love it. I didn't show you the teaching tools. I have a whole set of teaching tools down at the bottom, like how to turn there's one where you put an assignment in there and it'll show you how to make it AI friendly so that where students could use AI. There's one where you can take and how to build up defenses for one that you don't want them to use AI on. And then there's kind of one in the middle. There is, a lot of people in education and, schools are going different ways with this on detection of AI in papers.
Yes.
So AI detectors won't work. Telling people they'll never work. So one of the things that I kind of just built was, something that scrapes the metadata out of a paper. Right. So it will show you where everything was pasted, how long it took from one revision to the next. So if they did a 3-page revision in 2 seconds, right. And you don't use this in an accusatory way. You use it to show the students, okay, where did you paste this from? And a new rule is anything that's pasted in the paper, you need to be able to produce, right? What document did it come from? What website, what source did it come from? And they know this going in. I teach writing, so we work through multiple drafts. So I can see this very early, and that's the teacher's favorite one so far. It also analyzes their tone and can use past writing to look at their, the patterns that they've used. We all know the easy ones, right? Like M dash or something like that.
Yeah, the real easy ones to spot. Chat has its habits, doesn't it? Yeah, I feel kind of bad for the M dash. It's got a bad reputation now.
Right, especially if you write fiction or poetry.
Right. Yeah, it has a purpose.
Right? I had a teacher email me yesterday and he said, I'm not giving it up. I'm going to.
Nor should he have to.
Correct.
So I'd love to know what sort of things do you see on the horizon? What do you think is coming next with tools like this in hand? What's the next step?
Well, there's a lot of systems out there. Perplexity is one that, everybody can get, but systems that allow people to use multiple models, like in a school environment. And some of them, depending on how they're built, will actually farm out whatever is being asked to a model that's most appropriate for that. So that's already kind of here. What happened in the last couple of weeks is going to change a lot of things. I know y'all heard about Mythos, right? Everybody's talking about that. Did you hear about the Open Mythos project yet?
Oh, tell me about it.
Oh man, I just saw this last night, and I think it just happened the other day. But so Anthropic didn't release it, right? Whether it was a marketing ploy or whatever. Actually, the model is stout, so is Spud from OpenAI. But this kid went out and read all the academic, papers, looked at all the data, everything surrounded, and built one. And he calls it Open Mythos. And what it does, we won't get too technical, but where you might put in an input and it goes into the network and it attaches different expert and goes through several layers before you get to an output. This one goes in and it runs on different parameters and it does a pass through that. And then it takes what you put in, refines it, puts it back through the same thing again. And it's not counting extra tokens. So it goes through it 16 times. So I think the data center thing might not be as big of a deal as everyone thinks it might be in the near term, because this is so much more efficient. And that's kind of what Mythos, I think, in the new OpenAI one is, they're running off of that kind of architecture.
Fascinating. Yeah, I kind of figured these companies were going to have to come up with a way to make this more environmentally friendly anyway, if they were going to scale the way they want to, because that's going to be the biggest opposition, is the physical imprint on the earth.
Right. And space too. Now they're
right. That's so true. Any other final thoughts or takeaways you'd like everyone to have? We've got about 4 more minutes.
Well, I would just suggest that I'm sure y'all are all here, so you're curious and you're probably all doing it. Don't be afraid of it. The only way to do it is to get in and get your hands dirty and do it. The only way to stay up to date on it is never to sleep, so I wouldn't suggest that. But pick the pieces that are part of your domain and really kind of just like we tell students, be in there a little bit every day, maybe not every day, weekends, but and play with it. Try different models. You probably already do this, but put the same question into different models, see what the outputs are.
Yes.
Play with the settings on the models.
That's great.
Don't be afraid to experiment. And just like this whole presentation did, don't just blindly believe what those outputs are, because they can sound so accurate. They could give you statistics, and they can create sources that look accurate.
But you can.
Just be on the watch. We've seen court cases. We've seen academic papers get kind of just demolished because people just trusted them. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't use them, because they're amazing. But just like we've always done, is this a credible source? Is it in multiple places? How old is it? All of those things, they still count, but we can do them much faster now, which is great.
Yep.